We are live now.
Right. With the permission of all our dignitaries, good evening, one and all. It is a privilege to be welcoming all of you to this webinar on artificial intelligence in law, ethical dilemmas of the digital age, organized by the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Law, CALE, set up at Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University, New Law College, Pune. Against the background of rising acceptance towards artificial intelligence in the profession of law, it has been seen that AI is yet to sufficiently penetrate the legal field in India, and that there is an absence of a specific legislation governing artificial intelligence. It is against this background that Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University, New Law College, Pune, has set up CALE. While working towards facilitating comprehensive research on the interplay of the fields of artificial intelligence and law, and disseminating information regarding the legal implications of artificial intelligence, Kale is also focused on encouraging our students in developing a deeper understanding of artificial intelligence and associated opportunities in the field of law. It is to this end that we have organized this webinar today. For this webinar, we have with us today as our chief guest Ms. Selvina Dukuna, who is a privacy consultant currently based at Mumbai. She handles privacy and legal compliance of innovative startups and is currently working on a privacy oriented app which will be rolling out before the end of 2020. Ma'am has completed her master's in law and technology from Tilburg University and has previously worked as a technology and innovation legal counsel with a firm in Amsterdam. In her words, she's focused on exploring the legal tech cosmos to further learn about the emerging universes of quantum computing and cryptography, artificial intelligence and machine learning, blockchain, and Ethereum technology. We shall also soon be joined by our guiding force, Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande, Principal, Bharati Vidyapeeth, Dean to be University, New Law College, Pune. We are also joined by our unrelenting source of support, Dr. Aman Mishra, Advisory Board Member, CALE. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all to this webinar, and I also extend a warm welcome to the other invitees, esteemed members of the legal fraternity, our faculty members, student volunteers, and most importantly, the participants of today's webinar. May I now request Dr. Aman Mishra, Advisory Board Member, CALE, to render the welcome address. Sir, please.
Thank you, Revti. At the outset, I welcome all the participants and my dear friend Salvina, who has been very kind to join the advisory board of KL at Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University Nila College, Pune. We have established this center, which is quite new and innovative, and we are still on the experimental basis. Now, I'll just introduce our institute in brief way as possible. And then it was on 10th May 1964 that a sapling surfaced in the field of education that was watered by the glorious dream of Dr. Patanjali Kadam, who was the founder of Bharati Vidyapeeth, and which was to empower, the aim was to empower the masses with education, ornament the nation with the knowledge society, and to blossom the seed so sown into a world-class university. From mere sapling to an ark, ever growing and ever flourishing ark, Bharati Vidyapeeth Pune indeed has traversed a long and a glorious journey, and today it appears like a glittering diamond in the crown of education in India. Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University New Law College, Pune, is one of the premier institutes imparting legal education in the country. The college has secured fifth rank by Outlook, ninth rank today, third rank by The Week, third rank by the Career 360 magazine, and I can go on and on like that because we have so many accreditations accorded and conferred upon us. It has constantly been ranked among the top law schools in the country. The institute has also reaccredited with A plus grade by NAC in the year 2007. and it has also received the Category 1 status by the University Grants Commission, and also have been ranked 63rd by NIRF, which is the prestigious ranking. And it was all been made possible by one man named Dr. Pataganav Kadam. At the age of 18 years, he dreamed to establish a world-class university, and his dream came true in the year 1996 when the government of India has accorded permission to several cluster institutions of Bharatiya Vidyapeeth to forge into a deemed to be university. Right. So in the year 1996, we have started. We have been blessed by a very dynamic Chancellor, Dr. Shivaji Rao Kadam, who has been the guiding source and the guiding light for all of us. He remains the inspiration for all of us. We also have a very productive and very innovative, welcoming kind of ideas. Dr. M. Salunkar, who is the Vice Chancellor of this particular university. We have also been blessed uniquely by the guidance of young and dynamic Secretary of Bharatiya Vidyapeeth and also the Vice Chancellor of Bharatiya Vidyapeeth deemed to be University, Dr. Vishwajit Kadam. He is the one and only source that remains there, and he's the one who guides us. He's the one who inspires us in our journey towards excellence in the legal field, in the legal education. Now, the college, within very short span of time, the college has earned its great reputation. We have uh, established several centers for research and academic activities. Through research and academic activities, we usually carry on our excellence, you see, academic and research activities. So we have environment cell. The college has established it recently, and which again in no time has earned a great reputation in no time. Its work has been appreciated by the legendary members of the parliament, senior advocates, judges, and leading media channels like Doordarshan Kendra. The Environment Cell has also pioneered several legal research projects like Taduba project, which is centered around man and animal conflict. Then we have also projects like cleaning of rivers in Pune, holding of international conferences, seminars, and webinars, etc. So its work of the environment cell is very much being appreciated by almost everyone out there in the field. We also have a very much robust legal ed cell, which remains the nucleus of the grand academic activities and achievements. In January 2020, the Legal Aid Center has won the Best Legal Aid Clinic Award from the Knowledge Steez New Delhi for its remarkable contribution made in providing free legal aid and counseling to the poor, to the needy populace in the region of Maharashtra. We also have a very innovative ADR cell that is we popularly known as the Madhyastha cell, yet another feature in the institution's cap of glory, which the college has established recently. And the cell actively indulges in conducting various knowledge events and activities, organizing first of its kind like judicial panel on ADR, international conferences, moot court competitions on ADR, and Oxford style debate competitions, etc. These are the few featured activities of the Madhyastha cell. Then, like that, we also have Department for Research in International Law, and then Center for Finance, Banking, and Taxation, CFBT, we popularly as call it. And these are our techniques through which you see we continue to foster the quality legal education. We continue to impart justice-oriented education in the field, and we feel very much proud that through our centers we are able to reach to the community directly in the field, and at the grassroots level we are able to make a difference, which is not the case unfortunately with other law schools. So I'm not boosting it, just I'm just telling you the fact, right? So I think this is just brief introduction I wanted to give. And coming back to the kale, it is a well conceived idea of Dr. Bhagishri Deshpande. She was very much eager to work in the area of in artificial intelligence. However, we realized that uh, the technology has advanced in many places and in many causes, but we don't have sufficient laws to deal with the same. So the center aims to foster and to promote, spread an awareness about the artificial intelligence and its interplay between the law. And also, the center in future will try to come up with the suggestions so that a law could be codified on artificial intelligence. And the same suggestions we would like to give it to the government of India. And as and when the laws and the policies the government or state government would like to make, then our work will be highlighted and our work would be supportive and supplementary to the work that they will do already in the field of artificial intelligence and the law. Now, without much ado, I hand it over to Ms. Revati, who is the faculty coordinator, and she is working on the project very quickly. Over to you, Revati. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm sure that your support will guide Kale to much greater heights in the times to come. It is now time for the address by our chief guest, Ms. Elvina Diguna. Before we go ahead with the same, I just have a small anecdote to share. The first time that I interacted with ma'am, I remember that ma'am told me that she feels it's essential that all students get to experience the use of technology in their span of study and later on in their careers, just like she did. So we knew right then and there that she's the right person for our next step in exploring the interplay of artificial intelligence and law. May I now humbly request our chief guest to kindly address the gathering. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here this evening. A special thanks to Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande and, of course, Dr. Aman Mishra for being here and supporting me in my journey of being in the field of artificial intelligence and law. I would like to give special thanks to Revati for all the guidance and assistance that she provided during this period, and of course, your kind words. I am extremely passionate about the union of law and technology. I went all the way to Netherlands to get a master's degree wherein I could further enhance my expertise in this particular field. I fell in love with the concept when I was actually quite young, and I knew that the robots is what I fell in love with. And I knew that the robotics would be the future of us humans. And that is why I somehow pursued in that direction to finally come to the point where I can help the young generation like you yourselves to become the future of AI regulations. Before we begin, I would like to give a small disclaimer, just a formality with respect to the presentation. This presentation is intended for educational purposes only and do not replace independent professional judgment. The opinions expressed in these presentations and that during the Q&A round are personal, and the facts stated are paraphrased experts from various sources found online. I do not hold copyright of any of the images used throughout the presentation. Rest of the contents are original and are not intended for distribution. If you want to use it, you have my permission anytime. Just let me know. All right. Now that we have taken care of all the formalities, let's move on to the main part without wasting any more time, right? So, I hope this is visible.
Yes, you
Perfect.
started sharing the screen, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
all right.
perfect. So, the ethical dilemma of digital age. I thought it would be appropriate topic to discuss. We, as the future regulators, need to understand why a need is there to regulate and establish laws around artificial intelligence. What are the challenges faced by today's regulators pertaining to the regulation of artificial intelligence? The world is moving fast towards the future we all dreamed of. Everything and everyone today are reliant on technology. This webinar is possible because of technology. In these trying times of global pandemic, the whole economy of the world has not come to a complete standstill because of technology. In today's world, we do not have to wait for days, weeks, or even months, like the old days, for the telegram to arrive, an instant WhatsApp or a mail, and we have an ongoing, uninterrupted conversation among from the comfort of our own space. All these amazing advancements in technologies have been the result of human inventions and the thirst for desire to achieve something that has never been accomplished. But with the advancements of innovative and novel technologies, humans found itself in the position where nothing was good enough of a technology. And this exact thought led to the idea of artificial intelligence, a feat of human beings to imitate God's creation himself. J. Perlis an American computer scientist and professor, said, and I quote, "A year spent in artificial intelligence is enough to make one believe in God." The fact that a human being can create, or for the matter, even attempt to create a being of non carbon based form, to work and think like a carbon based form, is mirroring the creation of God. Eliza Yudkowsky, a pioneer in the field of friendly version of artificial intelligence, said, and I quote, "By far, the greatest danger of artificial intelligence is that people conclude early that they understand it." And this is why we are here today, to understand and grasp the concept of AI and the ethical necessities to bound this AI without actually suffocating or stifling its growth. We will be covering this vast topic of ethical dilemma of digital age in four parts. Part one, what is AI? The core technical aspects of what an AI is, history of AI, types of AI, and ever growing branches of AI. Part two, where is AI? What is the current standing and progress of AI? In what fields is it making progress? The positive aspects of AI. Where is AI taking us? What is the future of this AI technology? Part three, why we need to be concerned with the progress of AI. What are the philosophers, researchers, and pioneering personalities in the field of AI alarmed about?
ये चालू
What part of AI has evolved from science fiction books and movies and series and come out of life in real world? The reality of humans, is it taking a turn to the left, or is there time to steer to the right? And lastly, how do we tackle this problem? How will we regulate the AI? The possible options to solve the ethical dilemmas. How are the scholars proposing to solve this dilemma? Why is GDPR or PDPA an integral part of the inception of future of AI laws? But before we step into the world of AI, we will need to understand certain basic aspects of ethics. What is an ethical dilemma? What do you mean by a dilemma? Why? What are ethics? In my reading and watching list, I asked you all to visit a website that discusses the various types of pulley problems. What is a pulley problem? It is an ethical dilemma put forth wherein the two choices are both ethically wrong, but one has to choose between the least ethical wrong choice. To better understand these two words, we need to break down ethical into ethics and ethic. Ethic, in its singular form, is defined as the discipline dealing with what is good and bad and with moral duty and obligation. Ethics, in plural form, is defined as the principles of conduct governing an individual or a group of professional ethics. Thus, ethical is defined as pertaining to or dealing with morals or principles of morality. On the other hand, dilemma is defined as usually undesirable or unpleasant choice. So, to speak in layman terms, ethics is the judgment of right and wrong. Ethical is to have the correct set of morals and values, and dilemma is the hard decision to make. Now, if we club these definitions together, an ethical dilemma is a problem in the decision making process between two possible options, neither of which is absolutely acceptable from an ethical perspective. In literature and philosophy, there are various types of ethical dilemmas, but the most relevant ones, especially in the digital age, are utilitarianism, deontology, social justice theory, and virtue theory. Now, this slide can be a whole different webinar altogether, but to quickly browse through these very difficult words to pronounce, utilitarianism means a theory that the aim of action should be the largest possible balance of pleasure over pain, or the greatest happiness of greatest number. It is a form of moral reasoning which emphasizes the consequences of actions. Typically, it tries to maximize happiness and minimize suffering. In context of AI, many assembly line jobs around the world have replaced human workers with robots, which often enhances worker safety and helps avoid repetitive motion injuries. But at the same time, many such workers are left unemployed. Deontology means the morality of an action should be based on whether the action itself is right or wrong under a series of rules rather than based on consequences of the action. It is sometimes described as duty or an obligation. As one example, AI might be assigned to monitoring activities related to human right abuses. How is the AI to differ from what is wrong or what is right? It is the duty, the deontology of the program developer to feed the correct data and the right commands. Social justice theory is a concept of fair and just relations between the individual and society. Fairness and justice are concepts centered on giving people what is properly due to them. For example, someone who does something good ought to be rewarded, and someone who does something bad ought to be punished. If instead good is punished and evil rewarded, then very quickly society will experience serious problems. For example, algorithms claiming to assess a criminal's risk of committing a crime again are currently deciding sentencing and parole for many prisoners. A later study was published wherein an algorithm were proved to be biased and widely inaccurate. Would social justice theory help AIs be fair and just? Virtue theory. It means the emphasis of virtues of mind, character, and the sense of honesty. Virtue ethics helps us see the upside of technology for humanity while keeping us aware that a downside still exists. This theory is closely related to deontology theory, the only difference being it means about duty of an individual, whereas virtue theory speaks about the character and the sense of honesty of an individual. So, why do we need to know these theories? When one tries to regulate AI and try to fit AI in a legal box, many difficult choices need to be made by the policymakers. In order to make the right choice, we need to be prepared to answer the questions that will be asked with respect to the choices you made. And these theories are the ones that will help you determine the right decisions and put forth the decision with explainable ethical answers. Now that we have cleared out our certain basics of our topic for today, let us move on to the main topic, AI. What is AI? Do any of you know who this cleverly looking genius is? I'm certainly most of us do not know. And that is okay, neither did I, until one day I did. And that day for you is today. This is John McCarthy, one of the founding fathers of artificial intelligence. John McCarthy, an American computer scientist, pioneer, and inventor, was known as the father of artificial intelligence. After playing a seminal role in defining the field devoted to the development of artificial intelligence, he was the first person to coin the term AI in 1956. He defined it as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. In 1958, he created the Lisp computer language, which became the standard AI programming language and continues to be used today, not only in robotics and other scientific applications, but in plethora of internet-based services. From credit card fraud detection to airline scheduling, it also paved way for the voice recognition technology, including Apple's Siri. Along with John McCarthy, there were four other pioneering scientists who founded the basis of AI. Marvin Minsky was an American cognitive and computer scientist. In 1951, while studying mathematics at Princeton, he built the FAST learning machine, an artificial neural network built from vacuum tubes called the Stochastic Neural Analog Reinforcement Calculator, or SNARC. In 1959, together with John McCarthy, Minsky founded the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory at MIT. Herbert A. Simon was an American economist, political scientist, and cognitive psychologist whose primary research interest was decision making within organizations. Simon was among the pioneers of several modern day scientific domains such as artificial intelligence, information processing, decision making, problem solving, and so on. Alan Neville was an American researcher in computer science and pioneer in the field of artificial intelligence and chess software. In 1958, Anil Neville and Herbert Simon developed the chess program NSS. He contributed to information processing language and two of the earliest AI programs, the logic theory machine and the general problem solver. And now, lastly, my favorite scientist in the field of artificial intelligence, Alan Matheson Turing. He was an English mathematician, computer scientist, logician, cryptanalyst, philosopher, theoretical biologist, and the list goes on. Turing was highly influential in the development of theoretical computer science, providing a formalization of concepts of algorithm and computation with the Turing machine. He gets the title, the father of computer science and artificial intelligence, from his early work, where he illustrated the concept of AI either even before it even existed. Toward the end of his life, Turing developed the Turing test, also known as the imitation game. It was a general test of machines' ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to indistinguishable from that of a human. This test was a precursor to our current cognitive computing and AI. I would 100% recommend you all to read about the Turing test. It sounds too fictional to be such a major part of AI robotics. Now that we know what the history of AI is, let us move on to the in depth know how of artificial intelligence. The following two slides are extremely technical, and we need to know these technical concepts in order to understand what we are actually dealing with. To build a whole complex, we need to know how the foundation was built, right? AI is bifurcated into two parts, namely the stages of AI and the types of AI. The stages of AI are narrow intelligence or weak AI. It is a stage that involves machines that can function only on given set of instructions. They do not hold the capacity to carry out functions outside their command. Example, it would be Siri, Alexa, self-driving cars, etc. Then there is artificial general intelligence or AGI. Here, the AI is able to make its own decisions, just like us human beings. This type of AI does not exist yet. But the closest an AI came to general artificial intelligence would be the Facebook chatbot of 2017, wherein the two chatbots were commanded to speak between themselves and immediately invented their own language, which was completely incomprehensible to the human mind and had to be immediately shut down. Then there is the artificial superintelligence, strong AI or ASI. It is believed to be the point of singularity when the AI will surpass the human capabilities of processing and functioning. We will discuss more about this in the coming slides. This type of AI is still theoretical, and examples only exist in science fictions, more or less on the lines of Terminator, Rehoboam from the Westworld, Ava from Ex Machina, is what we should call an artificial superintelligence. Then there are types of AI. Reactive AI includes machines that operate solely based on the present data. Reactive AI cannot form independent opinions. Limited memory AI can make informed and improved decisions by studying the past data from memory. The greatest examples are the IoTs, Internet of Things like Roomba, which are expected to clean your room and your house by moving around. Then is the theory of mind AI, more advanced type of AI. Its main focus will be on emotional intelligence so that humans' beliefs, thoughts, and emotions can be better comprehended. Sophia, the emotionally intelligent robot, would be an apt example of this. Then there is the self aware AI. It is the version of artificial superintelligence that we discussed earlier. The science fiction doomsday of futuristic society brought upon by the evil rogue autonomous machines. Well, let us hope that such dystopia never comes to reality. And if it ever does, we humans are in the right side of this self aware AIs. This type and stages of AI together form different uses of AI, like machine learning, deep learning, robotics, expert systems, and the one Dr. Jose discussed in his webinar, natural Language processing. Wasn't that in-depth knowledge provided by Doctor just astounding? Every topic that we discuss here today can be expanded into its own webinars and to full extent academic courses. AI is so vast that one could never master it. There will always be some new development to master. My favorite domain of AI is machine learning. This slide will get a bit heavy and dense, but there is an aspect of the same that I require you all to understand to make sense of how to regulate an AI. Machine learning is a small application area of artificial intelligence in which machines automatically learn from the operations and finish themselves to give better output. Based on the data collected, the machines tend to work on improving the computer programs, aligning with the required output. It has already seeped into our lives everywhere without us knowing. Some examples of machine learning are self-driving cars, are advanced web searches on Google, speech recognitions, and many more. There are three types of machine learning. That is supervised machine learning, which basically when the output is classified or labeled. In a sense, you know what you expect from this particular AI. These algorithms learn from past data that is inputted, called the training data, runs its analysis and uses its analysis to predict future events of any new data within the known classification. The subtypes of supervised machine learning are the classification. As the name suggests, it classifies the data in order to receive the desired output. A real life example can be the spam filtering for our Gmail, where emails are the input that is classified as spam or not spam. Other uses would be fraud detection, image classification, customer retention, diagnostic. Then there is the regression type. Regression algorithm outputs are continuously variables and not discrete. Here, the output is of rather importance than the data received. Example would be predicting house prices using past data, forecasting, predictions, process optimization, having new insights on new progresses, so on. Then there is the unsupervised machine learning. Unsupervised learning algorithms are used when we are unaware of the final outputs and the classification or labeled outputs are not at our disposal. This algorithm study and generate a function to describe completely hidden and unlabeled patterns. Hence, there are no correct output, but it studies the data to give out unknown structures in unlabeled data. The subtypes are clustering, wherein the data with similar traits are asked to group together by the algorithm. This group is called clusters, like for recommendation systems, targeted marketing, customer segmentation. And then there is the high dimensional data. High dimensional data is normally not easy to work with. With the help of unsupervised learning, visualization of high dimension data becomes possible. Few of the examples would be the big data visualization, meaningful compression, structure discovery, feature elicitations. Then there is the final one, perhaps not for the future, but for the moment. Reinforcement machine learning. This type of machine learning algorithm uses the trial and error method to churn out output based on the highest efficiency of the function. The output is compared to find out errors and feedback, which are fed back to the system to improve or maximize its performance. The model is provided with rewards, which are basically feedback and punishment in its operations while performing a particular goal. Example would be the real-time decisions, game artificial intelligence, learning tasks, skill acquisitions, robot navigations. One of the most relatable example of reinforcement machine learning is Netflix movie Bandersnatch, wherein we could make the choices a protagonist should make and the movie would proceed thereon. Well, after explaining the above, I'm certain most of you are wondering how do you even attempt to regulate something that I do not even understand? And that is where the next particular bit and a vital aspect of AI comes in. Explainable AI or XAI or transparent AI, wherein the machine or the AI will be able to provide explanations as to why it chose option A or option B as opposed to option C to arrive at the said conclusion. And XAI's actions can be easily understood by humans. Why is it important for every AI to incorporate the XAI model? To produce more explainable algorithms and enable human users to understand, appropriately trust, and effectively manage the emerging generation of artificially intelligent partners. More explanations with respect to the importance of urgence of XAI in coming slides. Hold this one in your short term memory, we need it. Now, let us move on to the exciting part of the webinar. Where is AI? The field in which AI is making substantial progress and helping humankind to a better life. Whenever we use our credit card, an AI algorithm approves the transaction. Whenever we use the GPS in our car, we use an AI algorithm. Spam filters are based on AI. The Google Translate service is based on statistical machine learning. Which part of AI? The camera face recognition capability of any of our cameras is AI. The astounding progress in the medical research, not just pharmaceuticals and health issues predicting softwares, operation done by robotic arms to reduce human errors is beyond any words. Self-driving cars, I mean Tesla is on the right path. I hope to see auto-flying cars soon. Robotics, Sophia the emotionally intelligent robot speaking about having citizenship. Chatbots, it has come to a point where we do not even realize it is a bot that we are having a conversation with. Farming and agriculture, perhaps the cows will milk themselves in the future. Defense and national security, shopping, sitting at home with click of a button. Or perhaps Alexa can be kind to order me a Subway sandwich. Surveillance, the crime rate has dropped exponentially ever since the facial recognition technology has boomed. Manufacturing and packaging. Legal decisions are made by AIs in arbitrations, parole decisions, drones, blockchain, bitcoins, Ethereum. If I had to bet my money on the future of security of every artificially made machine, I would bet it on the great infusion of AI and blockchain. Alexa, hey, Alexa, how many of your Alexas at home responded to that? I hope none. Isn't the future fantastic? The evolution of AI has just taken birth. It has to grow into a well formed adult. So, what is the future of AI? Artificial intelligence has undoubtedly been the technology story of 2010s, and it does not look like the excitement is going to wear off as a new decade has begun. The past decade will be remembered as the time when machines that can truly be thought of as intelligent, as in capable of thinking and learning like we do, started to become a reality outside of science fiction. AI will increasingly be monitoring and refining business processes, filling in forms, generating reports and diagrams, and producing documentation and instructions are all tasks that can be automated by machines that watch what we do and learn to do it for us in quicker and more streamlined manner. This automation, known as robotic process automation, will free us from the drudgery of time consuming but essential administrative work, leaving us to spend more time on complex, strategic, creative, and interpersonal tasks. Human and AI cooperation increases. More and more of us will get used to the idea of working alongside AI powered tools and bots in our day to day working lives. Increasingly, tools will be developed that allow us to make the most of our human skills, those which AI cannot quite manage yet. To the point where if your employer isn't investing in AI tools and training, it might be worth considering how well placed they are to grow over the coming years. More devices will run on AI powered technology. As the hardware and expertise needed to deploy, AI becomes cheaper and more available. We will start to see it used in an increasing number of tools, gadgets, and devices. In 2020, we are already used to running apps that give us AI powered predictions on our computers, phones, and watches. As the next decade approaches and the cost of hardware and software continues to fall, AI tools will increasingly be embedded into our vehicles, household appliances, and workplace tools. More of us will interact with AI, maybe without even knowing it. Let's face it, despite the huge investment in recent years in natural language powered chatbots in customer service, most of us can recognize whether we are dealing with a robot or a human. However, as the data sets used to train natural language processing algorithms continue to grow, the line between humans and machines will become harder and harder to distinguish. With Dr. Jose's Prometheus AI and with the advent of deep learning and semi supervised models of machine learning, such as reinforcement learning that we just learned about, the algorithms that attempt to match our speech patterns and infer meaning from our own human language will become more and more available to fool us into thinking there is a human on the other end of the conversation. Perhaps this webinar will be given by an AI in the future. AI increasingly used to create films, music, and games. Some things in even in 2020 are probably still best left to humans. Anyone who has been seen the current state of art in artificially generated music, poetry, or storytelling is likely to agree that the most sophisticated machines still have some way to go until their outputs will be as enjoyable to us as the best that humans can produce. However, the influence of AI on entertainment media is likely to increase. This year, we saw Robert De Niro de-aged in front of our own eyes with the assistance of AI in Martin Scorsese's epic The Irishman. And the use of AI in creating brand new visual effects and trickery is likely to become increasingly common. And while completely AI generated music may not be everyone's cup of tea, believe me, AI is creating music on its own. Where AI does excel is creating dynamic soundscapes. Think of smart playlists on services like Spotify or Google Music or any of such apps that match tunes and tempo to the mood and pace of our everyday lives. AI will become ever more present in cybersecurity as hacking, phishing, and social engineering attacks become more ever more sophisticated and themselves powered by AI and advanced prediction algorithms, smart technology will play an increasingly important role in protecting us from these attempted intrusions into our lives. Spending on AI security will continue to increase, and those with relevant skills will be highly sought after. More and more personalizations will take place in real time, as we know that the success of internet giants like Amazon, Facebook, and Google, and their ability to deliver personalized experiences and recommendations, AI allows providers of goods and services to quickly and accurately project a 360-degree view of customers in real time as they interact through online portals and mobile applications, quickly learning how their predictions can fit our wants and needs with ever increasing accuracy. We will discuss about this more in the coming slides. AI becomes increasingly useful as data becomes more accurate and available. The quality of information available is often a barrier to businesses and organizations wanting to move forward. AI driven automated decision making, but as technology and methods of simulating real world processes and mechanisms in digital domain have improved over recent years, accurate data has become increasingly available sim- simultaneously have advanced to the stage where car manufacturers and others working on the development of autonomous vehicles can gain thousands of hours of driving data without vehicles even leaving the lab, leading to huge reduction in cost as well as increases in the quality of data that can be gathered. Why risk the expensive and danger of testing AI systems in real world when computers are now powerful enough and trained on accurate enough data to simulate it on a digital world? AI increasingly at the edge. Much of the AI we are used to interacting with now in our day to day lives takes place on the cloud. When the search on Google or flick through recommendations on Netflix, the complex data driven algorithms run on high powered processors inside remote data centers. Custom processors designed to carry out real time analysis on the fly will increasingly become part of the technology. And increasingly, we will be able to do this even if we have patchy or non existing internet connections. That is some edge right there. But AI will recognize us even if we do not recognize it. Perhaps even more unsettling, the rollout of facial recognition technology is only likely to intensify as we move to the next decade. Not just in China, where the government looking at ways of making facial recognition compulsory for accessing services like communication, network, and public transport. But around the world, corporations and governments are increasingly investing in these methods of telling who we are and interpreting our activities and behavior. All right, everything seems fantastic. So, what's the problem? AI will make human life easy, sounds perfect. Then why do we need to worry about regulating and legalizing methods of AI? Let me introduce you to the villain of our story. Enter point of singularity or technical singularity. The technological singularity, also simply the singularity, is a hypothetical point in time at which technological growth becomes uncontrollably irreversible, resulting in unforeseeable changes to human civilization. Artificial superintelligence will trigger an explosion of technology developments driven by machines that will change the world as we know it. In 1965, British mathematician and cryptologist Irving John Good, who worked alongside Alan Turing, my favorite scientist in AI, said the first supercomputer, now listen to this, the first supercomputer capable of recursive self improvement. I repeat, recursive self improvement could be the last invention of mankind. The machine would then either create machines with greater capabilities than itself or rewrite its own programming to become infinitely smarter over the point. The point in future where the machine intelligence and would no longer need the help of humans, the human intellectual, to carry out tasks, where it will supersede human intellect and the era of transhumans shall begin. On a side note, please read into the concept of transhumanism. It is a fantastic topic, something I heavily relied upon for my master thesis and have been ever since awestruck by the theory. So, we now know what the future, perhaps the future of AI holds for us. And as you may see, that it is coming soon, it's not far away from 2020. Do you know how an AI is able to achieve all of these great successful advancements we just discussed? An AI, a software of sort, is given a goal. The goal is to achieve the said result. How is the goal to attain the said results achieved? By data. Where do you get this data from? From us, you, me, all of the human population. But wait a minute, I never gave any data to any AI companies. What do you mean the data is given from us? This is where the AI development starts getting eerie. It is gathered through human manipulation. This is the very reason I asked you all to watch the documentary, The Social Dilemma. Every picture that you upload, every status that you post, every post that you click on, every like, every purchase, every view, every tiny thing that you do on internet is accumulated by the AIs and used for reasons like targeted advertisements, recommendations, and the list goes on. The more personalized data that AI acquires, the more quickly it grows. A baby needs food to become strongly, healthily grown up, right? But Will this baby AI ever stop growing? And if not, what ruckus will it cause in the future? Why do we need to tame AI before it is too late? Or is it already too late? If you all watched the documentary The Social Dilemma, you must have seen how companies like Facebook and Google use the data that we freely give to manipulate us into buying and purchasing services and products. As the saying goes, if the service is for free, you are the product. Remember the times when we got an ad or an article that we were only thinking about, had not even mentioned to our friends, or searched on Google, and boom, it appeared on your Facebook feed. It was not because Mark Zuckerberg has implanted a chip in your brain, or has he? I no longer can tell. Well, that's a joke, he hasn't. But it is because there are hundreds and millions out there just like you, who behave exactly like you and have purchased searched for things that you will in future. This is behavioral predictive analysis, and the AI clubs people of similar behavioral pattern and recommends or predicts your next move. So, what stops AI from dominating humans, becoming the decision making sphere like Rohobom from the series Westworld, or for the matter of fact, the government conducting mass surveillance, like in the classic movie 1984, probably one of the first futuristic films that spoke about the dystopian life of AI revolution. Fun fact, a campaign against Trump presidency compared the current state of USA to the totalitarian state of the country, like in the movie 1984 we just discussed about. Perhaps like in the episode of the series Black Mirror, where you as an individual and your life depended on the social credits given by your peers. Fun fact number two, the social credit system actually exists. It is national reputation system being developed by the Chinese Communist Party. Fun fact number three, Sony is developing a lens that records everything you see, just like in the episode of Black Mirror. Fun fact number five, an NFL reporter, Jane Slater, caught her boyfriend cheating after their interconnected fitness tracker alerted her of the physical activity on her boyfriend's tracker at 4 in the morning. I can go on with this fun little facts for ages. And if you think having an individual breach your personal privacy like this is terrible, wait till you realize the intensity of privacy breach when the companies that have access to such data use such data against you. Remember Face app, the app that showed you how would you look at the age of 80? This is an excerpt from the privacy policy. You grant Face app a perpetual, irrevocable, non exclusive, royalty free, worldwide, fully paid, transferable, sub-licensable license to use, reproduce, modify, adapt, publish, translate, create derivative work from, distribute publicly, perform and display your user content, and any name, username, or likeliness provided in connection with your user content in all media formats and channels now known or later developed without any compensation to you. Here is one for all you Tinder users. Of course, we also process your chats with other users as well as the content you publish as part of the operation of our services. Such AIs have seeped into politics, politics that decide the future of our livelihood. If any of you managed to watch documentary The Great Hack, it was about data processing company Cambridge Analytica that was involved in many disturbing activities, which included and was not limited to Facebook's algorithm that spread fake news about Hillary Clinton during the last presidential elections, Myanmar's religious riots against the Rohingya Muslims, where Facebook downright denied any culpability on monitoring fake news and hate speech. Then it gets scarier from here. A recent report was developed wherein leaked database showed Chinese firm watching over 2 million people including top Indian leaders and diplomats. Another little fun fact about the Cambridge Analytica, it also confessed involvement in the Indian presidential elections. Perhaps a food for thought. India has had its fair share of huge data breaches as well. One of the most scandalous one was Aadhaar card breach, wherein a whooping of 1.1 billion, not million, 1.1 billion registered citizen records were exposed and leaked. And the latest Paytm Mall data breach that took place just last month. The perpetrators hacked into the database and has demanded 10 Ethereum in cryptocurrency. This could be the best highest, as any form of cryptocurrency cannot be traced in any way. I have a beautiful Easter egg for all of you. We need to find it later during the webinar. For now, let us continue with the ethical disturbing corporate practices that we were just talking about. They are selling, using, abusing our data by entrapping our attention with, selling our attention, creating addictive user interfaces to keep the audiences hooked, spreading disinformation to gain profit for themselves and from other companies, selling political propagandas, creating a smart, expertly developed stream of searches that leads into a rabbit hole, biased news reporting, spread of fake news, intentional and malicious political polarization, the current uproar happening with respect to the suicide of late Sushant Singh Rajput, the insatiable attempt to pin Riya Chakraborty, and the unnecessary involvement of Kangana Ranaut. Few weeks ago, I was in a heated discussion with friends of mine about the topic and how the whole politics has been involved in the sad case of the actor Sushant Singh Rajput. And while this discussion, few minutes down the line, I had a sudden realization that the news and posts I was subjected to were on the opposite pole of what my friends were subjected to. And this incident hit me like a wrecking ball. Not that I was not aware of such things happening to people, but this was the first time I was subject to human manipulation. It had moved on from theory to practice on me. That evening, I sat down for 5 hours going through every settings and privacy policies on apps installed on my phone, deleted apps that were no longer important to me: Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, photo editing apps, food delivery apps, fitness apps, and so many more. But while doing so, I got stuck on the important apps that I use on regular basis and need for my professional existence. This was my very own ethic This was my very own ethical dilemma of digital age. Do I delete the apps and sacrifice my professional presence? Or do I continue using these apps and let my personal data be targeted against me? It is no longer about, I have nothing to hide. I'm not doing anything legal. Why should I be worried? Privacy does not concern me. As the former Google employee Tristan Harris puts it, the moment it starts overpowering human nature, it is checkmate humanity. So, what is the reason for all this human manipulation and corporate greed? It is the faulty business models of these corporations that led to the misuse of AI, the constant pressure from stakeholders to increase the usage of the services that they have invested in. So it leads to increase in the revenue, monetization of data to receive economic incentives. But the problem does not stop at corporate greed, and there are dilemmas. There are many more ethically challenging dilemmas that may break or make our future. The ethical dilemmas are beyond the concern of personal data privacy. It is about unemployment. Unemployment, what happens after the end of jobs? Current AI developments have not yet impacted hugely white collar jobs. AI's impact largely felt in the blue collar, repetitive jobs segment. Those who are inventing the technologies can play an important role in easing the effects of AI on jobs. The solution is not to hold on innovation, but we have a new problem to innovate around. How do you keep people engaged when AI can do most of the things better than most people? When governments choose what research to fund, and when businesses decided what technologies to use, they are inevitably influencing job and income distribution. The predicament lies in the fact that it is not easy to see a practical mechanism for picking technologies that favor future in which more people have better jobs. One of the biggest unresolved policy questions is how to deal with economic disruption that would affect millions of taxi drivers, chauffeurs, truck drivers, whose jobs could potentially be eliminated by self driving vehicles. Then, inequality. How do we distribute wealth created by AI? Today's economic systems are based on the principle of compensation for contribution to the economic unit, which is assessed through hourly wage. AI is a game changer in this respect because by using AI, a company can drastically cut down on relying on human workforce. Thus, the earnings will go to fewer people. Consequently, individuals who have ownerships in AI driven companies would definitely earn more at the expense of workforce, which was eliminated as a result of progress in AI. We are already seeing a widening wealth gap where the startup founders take home increasingly larger portions of economic surplus that they create. Would taxation of such companies be the solution? Humanity. How do machines affect our behavior and interaction? Artificially intelligent bots are becoming better at modeling and mimicking human behavior. In 2015, a bot named Eugene Goostman won the Turing Challenge for the first time. It's the Turing Challenge that I spoke about earlier. In this challenge, human raters used text input to chat with an unknown entity, then guessed whether they had been chatting with a human or a machine. Eugene fooled more than half of the human raters into thinking they had been talking to a human being. This milestone is only the start of an age where we will frequently interact with machines as if they are humans, whether in customer service or sales. Artificial stupidity. How can we guard against mistakes? Systems usually have a training phase in which they learn to detect the right patterns and act accordingly to their inputs. Once a system is fully trained, it can then go into test phase where it is hit with more examples and we see how it performs. The training phase cannot cover all possible examples that a system may deal with in the real world. These systems can be fooled in ways that humans would not be. For example, random dot patterns can lead a machine to see things that are not there. If the world wants to reap the benefits offered by AI, there should be a governance system with checks and balances to ensure that the machine performs as intended and that humans cannot trick it to use it for their own ends, which may sometimes be reprehensible. Then there is the AI bias. How do we eliminate AI bias? Though AI is capable of a speed and capacity of processing that is far beyond that of humans, it cannot always be trusted to be fair and neutral. Google and its parent company Alphabet are one of the leaders when it comes to artificial intelligence, as seen in Google's photo services, where AI is used to identify people, objects, and scenes. But it can go wrong, such as when a camera missed the mark on racial sensitivity, or when a software used to predict future criminals showed bias against Black people. Then there is the security. How do we keep AI from adversaries? The more powerful a technology becomes, the more potently can it be used for negative and malicious reasons. Of course, as for good reasons as well. This applies not only to robots produced to replace human soldiers or autonomous weapons, but to AI systems that can cause damage if used maliciously. Consequently, Cybersecurity will become even more important as the days come. Then there is evil AI. How do we protect against unintended consequences? There is a possibility of turning AI to fulfill human wishes with terrible unforeseen consequences. Or there is a possibility of AI's lack of understanding of the full context in which the wish was made. Imagine an AI system that is asked to eradicate cancer in the world. After a lot of computing, AI finds the solution to eradicate cancer by killing every human on the planet. Singularity. How do humans stay in control of a complex intelligent system? It's the one we just spoke about. Human dominance is entirely due to the cognitive revolution that has triggered by human ability to imagine things, develop tools, and intelligently design the environment. This possesses a serious question about artificial intelligence. Will it one day have the same advantage over us? We cannot rely on just pulling the plug either, because AI systems are complex and I believe are sufficiently advanced. Then there are human developed mechanisms of reward and aversion in AI systems. For instance, in the case of reinforcement, learning improved performance is reinforced with a virtual reward, just like a training dog. Currently, AI systems are still superficial. However, in near future, they might become lifelike. If the AI system is punished with negative input, will it suffer? If AI is enabled to perceive, act, and feel, will it be awarded legal status? Should AI be granted certain rights analog to rights of corporation? These are, by the way, some of the fantastic topics to write a research papers on. If you ever do write on one or any other topic for that matter, please do not hesitate to contact me. It would be my pleasure to supervise them for you. So, how do we shield ourselves from such dilemmas? There must be some laws on AI that at this current stage, right? Actually, no. There are no laws, only white papers, guidelines, and suggestions that are moving forward. Apply on regulations of AIs. Perhaps not AI per se, but the data we use to build these AIs. Data protection. In an era of increasing data collection and use, privacy protection is more important than ever before. To foster advances in AI that benefit society, policy frameworks must protect privacy without limiting innovation. Privacy laws would also recognize the data collected for a particular purpose that may lead to beneficial AI insights. To support useful research, government should provide reasonable latitude in assessing whether data used for AI analysis is within the scope of its original purpose. While privacy law should account for the benefits of AI, new regulations may be required to address concerns about the predictive power of AI, such as the possibility that AI system may infer private information about people. There is data protection regulations like GDPR and CCPA that are currently regulating personal data and processing of this data. Then there is general data protection regulation that we can use to keep a check on AI. These are the following articles from GDPR, if broadly interpreted, can be used to protect the wrong and misuse of AI. For example, the lawfulness of processing. Controllers of data, that is, companies who collect data from source, should do so in responsible and moral manner. Regulating the source of an issue is very important. And the most vital one, automated individual decision making, including profile. I think this is one of the articles that speak specifically about AIs, that is the automated. No involvement of AI for any decisions to be made about an individual should be without the prior permission of an individual. For example, I have the right to say no to automated decision making. For example, LinkedIn. LinkedIn uses the concept of keywords for searching you the right jobs, or for the job posters for searching the right kind of candidates. If you do not have these keywords in your resume or on your LinkedIn profile, perhaps you may be the perfect choice for that job, but it won't recognize you as the perfect candidate because you do not use the keywords. This is where you can use your power against automated individual decision making, including profiling. The responsibility of the controller, like I mentioned in Article 6. And then there is very, and I cannot be more clear about this, most important part is data protection by design and default, which means the way we build our businesses, our softwares, our websites need to be started from keeping privacy in mind. If you build something from the beginning with privacy in mind, later on you may not need to invest money, time, or any of those things in the future to have privacy seep into your organization. It is very important for data protection and privacy to be one of the main important revolutions in the field of AI. Then there is the record of processing activities. So we know how and when an AI used what data, to provide more accountability of how the AI is using this data. And this is where the XAI, the explainable AI that we discussed about, comes in play. Because when you have AIs that explain how they do and what they do, it will be easy for us to have records of such activities. And then there is rights of us. Data subjects are we. A right to access your data, to see what kind of data Facebook has, or to delete your data from Facebook, for example, or to be forgotten from Google or LinkedIn. You can say no to automated processing, and so on. India is in the race to regulate the personal data as well. Hopefully, by the end of 2020, our own Personal Data Protection Act, or PDPA, will come into force. There are guidelines and committees that have been developed nationwide to tackle the AI and its growth, trying best not to stifle the progress and keeping in mind the ethical dilemmas of digital age. Few of them are: in Australia, there is artificial intelligence governance and leadership. In Europe, there is ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI. European Commission also wrote a white paper entitled A European Approach to Excellence and Trust on AI. Then there is Microsoft. Microsoft's vision for AI in the enterprise, and the AI and Ethics in Engineering and Research Committee. Google set of principles governing the use of AI, and by Trump administration, artificial intelligence for the American people policy. These are just few guidelines, white papers, or soft regulations that are put forth by the governments of various countries. A lot of other governments are doing so too. But as you may see, none of this are regulations, not laws. They are guidelines. They are white paper. They are suggestions to how we can regulate AI. With this, I come to an end of this very long webinar. But before we go, I would like you to give all a parting gift. The Easter egg that I spoke about earlier, Alan Turing. Remember, my favorite scientist, and I've mentioned a couple of times already now. In 1950, asked whether machines could think, and that same year, writer and academician Isaac Asimov contemplated that, and he proposed what we recognize as the first clear laws of robotics to govern the design of intelligent machines. That the first one is a robot may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict the first law. The third law is the robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and the second law. Later on, Asimov added another law that concerned the humanity, and he did no, now call it the fourth law. No, but he rather called it the zeroth law. A robot may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to harm. Being explained to you what AI is, how AI works, what we need to regulate AI, and the major ethical dilemmas of the digital age, riddle me this. A robot may not injure a human or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm, right? So, what would a robot choose? Would he choose to kill one person? Would he choose not to do anything and kill five people? Or if it chooses the life of five people over one people? But what if I add this? What if these five people are all criminals? Will the AI choose to kill the five people and save the one innocent man? What if I say from these five people, two people were wrongly accused? Will the AI choose to kill the one person or the five people? So if I do not know an answer to this, I have no idea how the AIs are supposed to have an answer for this. With that, I will end my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Please go ahead and ask me any questions you may have. Believe me, there are never wrong questions, just wrong answers. So, if I do not know an answer to your question, I will try my best to do sufficient research on it and answer only thereafter.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I speak with conviction uh, when I state that the session was extremely informative and comprehensive. I'm sure that all our participants have greatly benefited from this session and have a lot of areas to now think about. To take this academic discussion forward, may I please request Professor Askar to kindly take over for the question and answer session. Ma'am, please.
Thank you so much, Revati ma'am. Good evening, respected principal ma'am, our esteemed guest, Ms. Selvena, respected teachers, and my fellow participants. I am Astha Srivastav, Assistant Professor at Bharati Vidyapeeth New Law College. I'm here to moderate the question answer session, or more appropriately to be called as the brainstorming session. So the first question is, should ethics be considered as an external limit to artificial intelligence or as something internal that inspires its own development? This question is asked by Dr. Jose of Prometheus Artificial Intelligence and Law. Ma'am, please.
Right. Thank you, Asta. Thank you so much. Well, I believe this is my personal response would be something internal that inspires its own development. As explained earlier, artificial superintelligence is inevitable. It's going to come. We are going to reach the point of singularity. What is important is for us to regulate it at the source. That is where I kind of pressured on the point the need for privacy as design and in default. The companies creating AIs and softwares built on AI that somehow infuse the ethical perspective, the duty, the way we, the virtues, and all of these kind of moral obligations that we as humans have, we infuse it in the AIs that are to be built in the future. So definitely something internal that inspires its own development, so that when the AI comes to live on its own, we as the parents of AI can rely on the virtue, ethics, and duty that was infused into the AI while growing up. Asta ma'am,
So,
your, yeah.
yeah, I am so sorry. Yeah, thank you so much. I hope this answers Dr. Jose's question. Now, the next question is, AI and robotics are the digital technologies which have a significant impact on humanity at large. This raises a basic question that what are the risks involved and what can be the measures to control or mitigate those risks. This question is asked by Ms. Shivangi Sinha, who is Assistant Professor at Bharati Vidyapeeth New Law College.
Thank you, Shivangi ma'am, for the great question. Actually, this was something I wanted to cover in my presentation, but perhaps these are more personal outputs as compared to what I used as a research and to give the presentation. What I personally believe is that what we could do is that we could tax these big giant companies for using our data. For example, if I'm giving you, let's say, just a random number, 1 GB of data, I need you, the companies who are making money out of my data, to pay me. So in future, when there are no more employment, when AIs are doing all the jobs that we are doing, we are not just left redundant, but we are useful in somehow. Similarly, there are also ways where we can name an AI. We can call an AI as a legal entity. For example, how a company is a legal entity and it has certain kind of uh, ethical things that they need to concern about. They should be concerned about. For example, a law firm, for example, makes sure that they do not do any illegal activities, make sure that the law stays right and white all the time. And this is where we can kind of, it has limitations if you call an AI a legal entity, but this is one of the ways, if used with other laws or maybe new generation of laws, that we can use and make sure that this digital age does not go on the wrong direction but stays on the right path, and we as humans are useful, and we as humans are not in danger in the future.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My views on the same line. I'm of the view that why to wait for legislation? Let's just bring it down to the organizational level and to control it, or let's say to make it more, human friendly.
Perfect, exactly my thought.
Yeah. The next question is, if there's a rampant exploitation of data, how can an AI choose between what to publicly trade and what not to publicly trade, or in other words, what to use and what to not use? This question is asked by Mr. Paurush Bandyopadhyay, who's an advocate.
Thank you, Sir Porush. I think it's a very excellent question. I might need to do more research on it, but from the overview of what this is talking about, I personally, this again a personal opinion to say, for this, I think that we are responsible. We as humans are responsible of how we train the AIs, how we train what kind of data we input in the AI, and what kind of commands we provide the AI in order to make sure that an AI is a child. You cannot tell your child what to do and what not to do. A child will look at you and decide, learn, looking at you, what we tell the child. Okay, this is wrong. You cannot hit your neighbor. That's wrong. You cannot do things like that. You cannot lie. It's wrong. This is our responsibility, our deontology that I spoke about, to make sure that AI does not take the wrong data outputs and takes only the correct data outputs. And we use this for the good of the future of humans.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The next question is, what are your views on privacy concerns with the use of AI? And along with that, there's another sub question: will AI become the catalyst of positive change? This question is asked by Gauri Sarup Bansal, who's a student of New Law College, BBLLB, fourth year.
Thank you. Actually, again, another question. Privacy is something I really enjoy. I mean, my pastime is basically reading privacy policies, which is weird, but then it exists. So, how will privacy be the catalyst of future? The privacy concerns are huge at the moment with respect to AI, because as I said, that the way AIs are going in the future and making what we desire to be AI to be in the future is happening because of the data that we provide. uh, for example, if we have to take medical AI, there is a lot of amazing growth happening with respect to how AI is use to come to a conclusion of how a cancer is caused, or what particular gene in your DNA causes the cancer. And as I mentioned earlier, is that this kind of data, the data, this is personal. For example, I have cancer, and this data is out there for the AI to exploit and say that our subject A, Selvina, has this cancer. This is a major privacy and ethical breach of our privacy, right? And how do we make sure that privacy is the catalyst of the good AI? As discussed, GDPR and even PDPA. There are a couple of fallbacks for PDPA, the one that we are working on, India is working on. But one of the main things is, again, it comes to us, how we regulate this, how this privacy, the concerns with related to privacy are regulated. For example, it is kind of my belief, it is kind of too late for us to regulate companies like Facebook or Google, because they already have a vast amount of data on us. So even today, if I decide to delete everything from any of these big companies, they still have my data, and they're still going to use this data to derive to a particular thing that they want to come to, right? So I think privacy can be an amazing catalyst, but there are still a lot of progress that needs to be done with respect to data privacy and AI regulation.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was indeed very informative. This brings us to the last question for this webinar. The question is, there's a thin line between holding corporates accountable for potentially unethical AI systems they use and curbing their rights. So, how should we balance, or how should the balance be drawn between both of these? This question is asked by Alra Sayed, who's a student of New Law College, LLB second year.
Could you please repeat the second part of the question?
Yeah, so he asked that how can the balance be drawn between holding the corporates accountable for using unethical AI systems and curbing their rights, their fundamental rights at the same time? So, how should this balance be drawn? That
Right.
their rights are not curbed, but at the same time, they are holding them accountable for unethical AI systems.
See, that's a very interesting dilemma, because how will the AI and the future of humans progress if AI does not come to the point where it is the super artificial intelligence, like the biggest of its self-aware AI? If you don't give it the data that it requires, how will it become and grow big? But then, if we give it all the data that it requires, what if it uses the data against us? This is the question that I think of philosophers will be answering, I think, even in the next century. But essentially, again, there needs to be a perfect balance. There needs to be a line that needs to be drawn. Corporate cannot use this data for malicious activities. If you're using data, for example, self-driving cars, you're using the data of people driving and how they react on the red lights, or do they cross the red light without even thinking. They can use this data in the good ways. They can use this data to make sure that the self-driving car never harms the person in front of it, or the person sitting inside it. But then, if we use this to, let's say, this is very futuristic, this is very science fiction. Let's say we use this self driving car to kill somebody. What if these corporations create a whole entity that does this, like some kind of terminator kind of thing that goes and kills humans? I know it's futuristic, but we need to think in a futuristic perspective. We need to think about what the AI will do in the future, so we can regulate it now, today. And that is where I think it's completely unethical, and government should probably take a little bit more interest in making corporations a little more ethical in its own existence, I think.
Thank you so much, Ms. Alvina. This brings us to the end of the question answer session. I'll just take a little bit of the bandwidth. I want to thank Principal Ma'am for such an informative session for all of us. Thank you, Sylvana Ma'am. Thank you, Revati. Thank you, Kale. And I want to apologize to all the participants whose questions were not addressed to. We had paucity of time, so I apologize for the same. Thank you so much, ma'am. I request Repti ma'am to take over the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selvina ma'am and Asta ma'am. I know that there are several questions that we could not address because of the shortage of time. I'll make sure that the questions reach our guest.
Yes.
I'll mail it to her. We'll make some kind of arrangement so that all the questions raised by the participants reach our chief guest. May I now please request our guiding force and the impetus for the formation of KALE, our beloved principal, Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande ma'am, to kindly speak a few words. Ma'am, please.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yes, I'm audible. Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session. It was so informative, so educative, and you had a very lucid and comprehensive, analytical, classic style of explaining. We all have really enjoyed this session, and we look forward for more sessions like this.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you
For
for having me here, giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you. It was a definite
the
pleasure.
pleasure was ours. The pleasure was ours.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. We
Thank you
really
very much.
enjoyed this session. I'm sure all my students have benefited a lot by this session.
That was my only intention.
Yes, and the intention has been fulfilled. So, the use of artificial intelligence depends upon the human intelligence.
Exactly. Until we reach the point of singularity, then I do not know what we can do.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a nice
Yes,
evening.
yes, same to you, ma'am. Revati, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. So before we conclude, may I please request a student from our college, Sobya Sharma, to kindly render the vote of thanks. Sobya, please.
It is said, no duty is more urgent than that of returning a thank you. A very good evening to one and all present. I deem it a great honor and privilege to be proposing the vote of thanks on this momentous occasion. It is a matter of great delight to have witnessed this informative session organized by KALE, New Law College, Pune. I, Sobhya Sharma, from the bottom of my heart and being, take this privilege to heartfully thank our chief guest of the day, Silvina Dipuna ma'am, who, despite of her packed schedules, spared her precious time for all of us. Ma'am, it was a sheer delight listening to you. All of us surely have a handful of lessons to take back home. Also, I would like to sincerely thank our most respected and beloved principal, Professor Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande ma'am, for her constant guidance and support throughout. Ma'am, it is your vision that we are actualizing through KALE. Furthermore, I would like to thank Dr. Aman Mishra sir, Member Advisory Board KALE, for guiding us in all our endeavors. Now, moving further, my most special and heartfelt thanks to Revati ma'am, Faculty Coordinator, KALE, NLC Pune, for being the most solid support system throughout and making this event a reality. I also thank Astha ma'am for coordinating the question and answer session. A special mention to the technical team here who has facilitated the successful organization of this event. And finally, last and the most important thanks to all the participants for their enthusiasm and for making the seminar a success. A big thank you to all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Selvina ma'am. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us and giving us this opportunity to listen to you.
My
It has
pleasure.
been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, my
Thank you so
pleasure
much.
as well. Thank you.